So where did the debunking argument swamp gas come from? Sounds like J. Allen Hynek. So this comes from UFO mystery still haunts some 1966 Dexter, Michigan sightings by residents. Officer called swamp gas by U.S. government. March 14th, 1966. Sheriffs watch high performance discs. This is where we get swamp gas. Washtenaw County sheriffs and police in neighboring jurisdictions reported disc-shaped objects moving at fantastic speeds and making sharp turns, diving and climbing and hovering. Sounds like swamp gas to me. At one point, 4 UFOs in straight-line formation were observed. Selfridge Air Force Base confirmed tracking UFOs over Lake Erie at 4:56 a.m. Their stories were backed up by more than 100 witnesses. This looks like where we get swamp gas attributed back to J. Allen Hynek and the government. Thanks for being here. Please hit the like button if you do like this content, and consider subscribing.
Chris Lehto. Welcome to LehtoFiles.
It started when a Dexter farmer named Frank Manor and his 18-year-old son Ronald told the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department that a strange flying object appeared and landed in a swampy area at Quigley and Brand Roads. Frank Manor, 46 years old, told authorities that night that the two went out in search of the object moments after they saw it touch the ground. He said it appeared to be brown with a quilted effect on the surface. It was flat on the bottom and cone-shaped toward the top, with 2 small lights on the outer edges emitting a glowing blue-green color that intensified and turned red at times. When it became brightly lit, the entire object was light yellow, with the light running horizontally between the 2 outer running lights. According to the police report, Manor said, "We then heard the sound of a whistle, something like a rifle bullet makes when it ricochets off something. Then this object went up in the air, passed directly over us, and disappeared." Okay, we'll see if that could be swamp gas, as they say. Patrolman Robert Hunewill of the Dexter Village Police Department reported then that he saw what appeared to be the same object after he parked his car near the area. He said it suddenly appeared over his patrol car at a height of about 1,000 feet, that it had white and red lights on it, that at times had a bluish tinge, and that it hovered over the car before continuing sweeps over the swamp. I'm guessing this area had a lot more swamp back in the day, or maybe this is the swamp. Certainly looks like swamp. Hunewill reported that he watched the object for a few minutes before it was joined by 3 others that flew in formation, with one set of 2 flying high above the other 2. They then disappeared into the sky. Professor J. Allen Hynek, a Northwestern University astrophysicist who consulted with the military, came to Dexter to investigate, and then reported his findings at the Detroit Press Club. "It was like a mob scene," said Bill Tremmel of Ann Arbor, the Ann Arbor News reporter who covered the story. Then Hynek said, "As near as I can tell, what we're seeing is swamp gas." Amazing there. He said swamp gas. Hynek actually changed his mind later on and did a 180 turnaround, becoming a prominent ufologist. The reporter Bill Tremmel was convinced that Manners and Hunewill saw something that night, so multiple witnesses. Frank Manor wasn't a nutcase, the reporter said. He wasn't a guy who had wishes of grandeur. He was just telling what he saw. I'm sure he didn't dream it up. He died thinking that was some kind of UFO, either Air Force connected or from another planet or something. Tremmel said he thinks it was man-made, actually, and that the government just said, "Yeah, it's swamp gas, don't worry about it." Okay, now this is a great quote from Douglas Harvey. He was Washtenaw County Sheriff from 65 to 72. He's never believed the government's official stance on what that thing was. He says, "Dr. Hynek was sent in from the U.S. government. He came into my office. We went out to the site where supposedly this object came down on the ground. Dr. Hynek in the car said, 'There is something. We just can't put our finger on it. We've been investigating this for quite a while.' They returned to Harvey's office, where Hynek asked to use the telephone in private. He was on the phone for quite a while, which I found very enlightening, Harvey said. He came out and I said, well, Dr. Hynek, what do you think? He said, it's swamp gas. He tells me 1 minute he has no idea what it is, and then he makes one phone call to Washington and comes out and gives a statement that it's swamp gas. Very strange. And then the Manor family really caught a lot of flack, which was very unfortunate. He said soon after that, a man who was out running in Brighton reported a sighting. And then that was it, Harvey said. It just kind of died away. They did see something, the sheriff said. I'll believe this to the day I die. Somebody has kept something quiet. And nothing more ever materialized. So we don't know if it was the government experimenting or was it really a UFO. I don't know. Harry Wilness was the former state director of MUFON. He investigated the sightings and wrote a feature article about it. He had a copy of the police report from that night and said there's no way that it was swamp gas. He says, for instance, it mentions that the object was observed to rise to an altitude of approximately 500 feet and then return to the ground. Swamp gas doesn't do that. It only goes off the ground a few feet. It mentioned when it took off, it sounded like a rifle shot in a canyon. Again, swamp gas doesn't do that. Interesting here what it said back in 1967. So I actually worked for a while as an investigator for Hynek. Started the Center for UFO Studies. He said, I think it was either a craft that came from the Earth, an extraterrestrial, some kind of one-dimensional device. And I'm starting to use the word multiverse rather than universe. Some kind of one-dimensional craft, perhaps, that came into our realm and then left. So I haven't heard that before, one-dimensional type craft. We haven't solved the case, said. We still don't know the answer, and yet it still continues to occur with sightings every day around the world. And that was just the final event on March 20th. Actually 6 days before, in the whole preceding 6 days, Washtenaw County sheriffs and police reported dish-shaped objects moving at fantastic speeds and making sharp turns. Selfridge Air Force Base confirmed tracking UFOs over Lake Erie. You had Colonel Miller, County Civil Defense Sector, called. He stated just to keep an eye on the objects, he did not know what to do. This is from the 14 March sightings. Washtenaw County deputies Bushrow and Foster formally stating, this is the strangest thing that I've ever witnessed. We would have not believed this story if we hadn't seen it with our own eyes. These objects can move at fantastic speeds and make very sharp turns, dive and climb, and hover with great maneuverability. We have no idea what these objects were or where they could have come from. At 4:20 a.m., there were 4 of these objects flying in a line formation in a northwesterly direction. At 5:30, these objects went out of view and were not seen again. Bushrow told the press it would swing back and forth like a pendulum, then shoot upward at tremendous speed, hover, and then come down just as fast. Dexter Police and Livingston County Sheriffs, contacted by Bushrow and Foster, reported that they saw the same objects engaging in the same maneuvers. Then the next night, Sergeant Schneider and Deputy Fitzpatrick saw top-shaped objects making sharp maneuvers. They alternately hovered, rose, and fell quickly, darted around at jet-like speed, their light dimming and brightening periodically. That was in a report to NICOP. The officers stated the 2 objects were operating together, circling and flying in formation, while a third object hovered at a lower altitude. That was on the 17th, and then we have March 20th, which was Frank Manor and his family. Along with dozens of other witnesses reported that a domed oval object with quilted or waffled surface and lights in the center and on each end had landed in a swampy field, and now Hynek shows up and says, hey, that is actually swamp gas. It's basically methane gas, or could be other bioluminescence, will of the wisps. This guy, Geir Drablos, got this picture. He says the rotting leaf creates methane gas that gets trapped in the ice, like gas pockets. When you make a little hole in the pocket and light it, it burns. I used a match, no manipulation. Look at that. So it's basically, this is what swamp gas is lit methane, fossil fuels essentially. So it's famous in folklore. Will-o'-the-wisp, or ignis fatuus, is Latin for foolish flame, is an atmospheric ghost light seen by travelers at night, especially over bogs, swamps, or marshes. Wills of the wisp appear in folk tales and traditional legends of numerous countries and cultures. So some notable named examples include the St. Louis Light in Saskatchewan. Supposedly 2 grade 12 students from La Ronge, Saskatchewan won science fair gold medals for investigating and eventually duplicating the phenomenon, which they determined to be caused by diffraction of distant vehicle lights. However, local residents claimed the light had been reported before the advent of cars. There's also Naga fireballs. These are known as Mekong lights, or formerly ghost lights. This is said to be seen annually on the Mekong River. Glowing balls allegedly rise from the water high into the air. So there's some mundane arguments for what this could be. Involves plasma physics, so free-floating plasma orbs, or a result of flammable phosphine gas generated by the marshy environment. So essentially swamp gas could be the Naga fireballs, but still not proven true. Will-o'-the-wisp or swamp gas also given for Hesston lights as a possible explanation. So in folklore, wills of the wisp are typically attributed as ghosts, fairies, or elemental spirits. However, modern science explains the light aspect as natural phenomena such as bioluminescence, caused by the oxidation of phosphine, diphosphane, and methane produced by organic decay. So basically it is bacterial farts, essentially. So that is swamp gas. It's where it came from. It's basically biological decay creates methane, builds up in pockets. And then if it lights or creates some sort of bioluminescence, that would explain all of the crazy will-o'-the-wisps. Unfortunately, none of that science is proven. You see there, methane can't just fly around. It doesn't have all these different lights. It doesn't have specific shape, right? It would just be gas, essentially burning. So it was interesting to find out that J. Allen Hynek actually at least furthered the swamp gas argument and came down, talked to these people, looked them in the eye and said, after a phone call, yeah, it's swamp gas. The sheriffs were all blown away. And like you heard there, the sheriff thought something was going on. It's definitely a cover-up. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. It really helps, and it's free. Consider subscribing to get future notifications of when I release videos. And you might like this video. If you want to support the channel, join these great people over here. Get exclusive bonus content. Then click this button here, patreon.com/chrislehto, or become a YouTube member. If you want to continue the discussion, go to UAP Society Discord. Links are all in the description. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.